like I showed you my video on here on Discord.
All right, guys, how's it going? Sorry for the little delay. We were running into a few little roadblocks, but we're good now, I think. Eric can't make it this week, so D. Charles was kind enough to jump right in. So yeah, how's it going?
They're not very good.
Not
But
very good.
well, I I mean I think this is going to be out of the three that I've seen so far. This is my least favorite for certain.
Yeah, same here, same here. There's a lot to talk about. Hello, Matthew. Hello, Metal Mass. The usuals, the usuals. So what should we start with? Should we focus on the good first before we head towards the Septa Rhaenyra thing? Because I think
I
that
was
will
taking,
be.
I took some notes. So they're out of, yeah, we can start wherever you want because my notes are entirely out of order.
um, yeah, let's start with the good things because that obviously is all the Harrenhal stuff. I absolutely loved it. The whole feel of that is just brand new because Game of Thrones shied away from doing stuff like that quite often, and it is, it's nothing that we've never seen in film or TV. Dreams and people being haunted by their past and stuff. But if you think about it, A Song of Ice and Fire, so much is revealed to us in A Song of Ice and Fire through dreams, and to see it implemented and then and House of the Dragon playing with that, I think is wonderful. And I complained a lot about Daemon in the past in season one, how they always seem to, pick the worst version that Fire and Blood presents or offers. I think that is all gone now. I'll gladly eat my words because I think they did that so they can haunt him. And I was wishing or hoping for something like that for Jamie or Theon. Um, but yeah, what did you think
Kind of
about it?
called back to Jamie there a little bit there with him out there with the weirwood tree too.
Hmm.
Um, kind of. So I really enjoyed the atmosphere of Harrenhal. I mean, it looks great. I mean, I guess the one area that like what the haunting of Harrenhal is kind of a real thing in this in House of the Dragon. It seems like because
Hmm.
like whatever that banging on the door that I mean that really kind of tripped me out. And then I mean obviously for Daemon like it all happens around the weirwood, so I think that was kind of an interesting way to tie that in. But like he's just that like you just think about the premise though. Like he just goes there by himself and just finds this place totally deserted, and it kind of builds off the lore a little bit too with what we think of Harrenhal. When I think of Harrenhal, I don't ever envision this populated place before Balerion came through and basically destroyed it. I don't think of it even when we read about it in in A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't ever think about it as populated. I don't, the Great Council to start off House of the Dragon. I mean, that's the most that exceeds my expectations or my imagination of what this place looks like filled. I can't picture it. I can't see it. So him going in there and finding it just like a ghost town kind of was very fitting, at least for my expectations or the way I imagined it. I liked it. I also like the way like he always seems to just Daemon's the most fearless person it seems. As far as a character, like when he lands on top of Harrenhal and he's looking down, uh, people kind of scatter the few people that are there, but like the nuts on this guy to just kind of like go ahead and start wandering through this castle. Like he left Craxus outside, obviously. I don't know. I liked it. I really do like the atmosphere. I like bouncing around a little bit. I know we didn't get enough of that last season, so to kind of move around as these characters have kind of expanded out, and you know, if it all took place at Harrenhal, something like that, it wouldn't work as well. Having the contrast, moving from King's Landing to Dragonstone, etc. I I keep thinking. So I just watched this. You watched it a while ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was a little. I don't know if if you share this sentiment or not. I was wanting to see the Brackens and Blackwoods more, a little bit.
Really?
I wanted to see the
Really?
Battle of Burning Mill
Mm.
just a little bit, because we don't really know. There's not a lot of like, I guess, like intimate interaction between those two houses there in Fire and Blood, as
Mm.
far as like for the reader. Like we don't have much insight as to of the different politicking. It This episode felt like it was narrated by Gildane, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Where, like, when he tells Daemon, like, well, they've been fighting for thousands of years, and the reason has been lost to history.
Mm.
Like, it sounded like a line straight out of the book, and
Mm.
it's one of the things that frustrate me about the book. We don't get any answers,
Mm.
so well, not a lot. So to hear it worded that way in the show, it's like this is really the world they all live in. Is like, well, it is what it is, and we don't actually know.
That's interesting
I thought
because
that
I
was kind of
really
fitting.
liked it. I really liked them not showing the actual battle because the contrast or that little skirmish there to that whole battlefield, like that's the direct point that House of the Dragon has to make. I think the anti-war thing, obviously. It's just two young boys, really young men, fighting over something seemingly so little, and then it cuts to the absolute chaos and the absolute horror of war, and I like that. And I prefer this over having
The
the
imagery,
actual.
it was great.
Yeah.
Like I like the cut. Like it
Mm.
works really well. It reminded me
Yeah.
of when I don't remember what episode it was, but it reminded me of when Ramsay takes Theon to take Moat Cailin, right?
Mm.
Where they're like negotiating, and all of a sudden it just cuts to this guy's been skinned alive and he's dead.
Mm.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it kind of threw me back to that a little bit. So
Mm.
I mean it's good. I just wanted, I don't know. I don't know why. I just wanted a little bit more detail
Mm.
there with that battle. Only because it's one of those bullet points in the book. It's not explored on or anything like that. It's not expanded. But like I look at the whole show this way. It's like this is their opportunity to expand on those bullet points. So
Mm.
that's not really my biggest criticism there. It's just one of those things that like I wrote down like, I would have liked to see something there. But after tomorrow and watching it a few more times, I don't know. My opinion might change. It did last week. There was things I didn't like that I thought I didn't like last week, and then multiple views changed my perspective,
Mm. I
which
felt
everybody's not
like
going to
that
do.
with
So
episode 3 too, by the way. I was very, very annoyed after I've seen it for the first time. Then when I came back home, because I watched it during my vacation, when I came back home, I rewatched it, and I'll never be fine with what they did towards the end of the episode. I think that was very stupid. I think it's 100% the worst thing they've done so far. But we'll get to that later. I wanna focus on Harrenhal because the
yeah,
moment
we
Damon's
can talk about the. I've got notes of negative stuff, so we'll
mm,
focus on what you really loved, and then let's see
yeah.
if our notes match.
What I really loved was everything about Harrenhal because that whole feel that just oozed a Song of Ice and Fire to me. And the moment he
Mhm.
sets foot into the castle, everything is out of order. We can already see, or I think we can already hear Alice Rivers whispering, and there's a lot going on that I think one might easily miss if you don't rewatch it. And I can't go into details about what's going to happen in the next episode, but this is something that will continue. And Ryan Condal said that Harrenhal is going to be its own character. And that's just 100% what we saw. And I really liked it. I really, really enjoyed Harrenhal the most. And I think it's one of my favorite storylines so far. And
Yeah,
I,
it reminds me of something too, like an older. Let me make sure I'm citing the right thing.
hmm.
Keep talking. I'm just looking at something here.
Yeah, let's look at the chat real quick. What do we got? Matthew asks, what did you fellas think about Ulf throwing his bastardom around in the meat hall? I think this is very much in character, right? He's a drunk, so drunk people spill things all the time. I think that's in character. It is quite it was quite a surprise that he supposedly is Balon's bastard, but it makes sense, even though people are very protective of Balon's and Alyssa's relationship. I think it's just natural that a Targaryen prince at some point will have sex again and bastards can happen. So I think that makes sense. I'm not outraged by it, and I think that this might be something that Ryan got from George. At least the approval, anyways. Jesus V asks, did you guys have any issues with how easily Rhaenyra got into King's Landing to speak with Alicent? Yeah, I got it. I got a lot of issues with that in general because I think that was just
Comments on that.
it was just so stupid. I'm sorry. Even her Valyrian, her silver hair was visible, towards the sides. And I was just like, okay, what is going on here? Because I really think this might have been the best episode, and it really the ending again. Similarly to how season 1 episode 9 really didn't stick the landing. This was just something that really put the whole episode down. And I think it's a pity because it's just.
I'm glad you brought up episode 9. Go ahead, finish your thought. But I'm glad you brought up episode 9 because it's kind of like episode 1 of this season for me in a way.
Yeah, I think
But
that whole plan is stupid.
go ahead.
Obviously, it's intentionally stupid. It's reckless, but also just the behavior of both people, Alicent and Rhaenyra. It's well acted. I like their relationship. I like the spin that House of the Dragon put on their relationship more than what we got in the books. I like this seemingly, this lovers kind of side that it's also put into there, put in there. But just in general, people have died. You're at war. It's time to people were complaining about the agency, and I always defended it and said, yeah, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I don't need 2 seasons of it. It's about time that these people act like they're at war. You've lost your grandson, Alicent. You've lost your son, and it's time to act like that. I think I really didn't like that that aspect because the agency is lacking now. Like I'm fully on board with that right now. And I think, yeah, that was definitely, I think, the worst scene of House of the Dragon so far. Even worse than the dragon just coming through the floor. And what are your thoughts about it?
So, all right, I thought we were going to wait towards the end, but so there's a couple with Rhaenyra. First of all, like I understand her reluctance. I think it's important that they do keep a stat almost to the point where it's exhausting. Her reluctance to go to war. I understand that we are looking at an adaptation of Fire and Blood. This isn't a one for one. and I'm actually happy about that. But I th- I feel like this is one of those episodes where I have a much more optimistic, positive outlook on House of the Dragon, especially moving forward. I feel
Hmm.
like this is one of those shows that's going to pick up steam as it goes. It's going to get better as it expands, and maybe we'll change our opinions looking back on some of these episodes, and maybe we won't. But I feel like overall we're moving to a better place. But this is one of those episodes that if you do have a negative outlook on House of the Dragon, which I don't know if why you're watching then, but you don't like it. But I guess that's I guess people like to watch a train wreck, and if they assume a train wreck is coming, they want to watch it. But I can see people getting very frustrated with if now is not the time for war, then when is?
Hmm.
And it kind of reminds me of again, it's like Fire and Blood though, because I have maybe a more negative perspective of Fire and Blood than I'm finding out from others, especially in my comment section. Because it says the same thing over and over, and it's kind of what we're seeing here. Rhaenyra is reluctant to actually go to war, and you always hear it at the end of some event happens. You know, the War of Ravens has ended and the War of Dragons has begun. But then we have like 3 or 4 more examples of our narrator saying the exact same thing. And now the war has begun. It's repeated over and over and over again. Where it's like, if you're in any one of these war councils, if now's not the time to attack, then when is? They killed your child.
Yeah, that's
Now's
my
the time to
point. That's
go.
my point. You know, people have died,
With
and
Allison, Allison, I get what you're saying there too, and I don't. I'm wondering if we're going to regret this introduction of the Song of Ice and Fire.
hmm.
This attaching it to maybe it's attached to Game of Thrones. I feel like it's piggybacked off there. I don't know.
That's another aspect
But
of it that I just didn't like because it just feels like you're watching something that you've seen in movies and film and TV shows a million times already. You know, people talking about it, and it slowly builds up towards the big reveal, the big misunderstanding. Oh no, and oh my God, I can't believe I've misinterpreted this all this time, and I just think it's so unnecessary. Also, why couldn't you just uh, set up a truce? Or we know that happens, so why do it now? And I think it is.
well, I don't think they get a parlay with just Rhaenyra and Alicent. I feel like if we're looking at it as nonfiction, I don't see a scenario where those two characters are able to be brought together without somebody more turbulent being brought along with them. You
Yeah,
know,
that's true. That's true.
like with the Blacks, Daemon would show up with the Greens. Like Criston Cole wouldn't be able to be there. Aemond wouldn't be able to be there. I can't imagine either one of those councils letting those two meet. So I feel like that is kind of an issue, and I get it. Like you want to see these two characters see each other again, but the way we got there, it you maybe I'm alone in this. Do you remember like one of everybody's least favorite episodes, but when Davos brings Tyrion into King's Landing, like I hated that in Game of Thrones. I don't like them doing the same thing here.
Hmm.
Like it seems clever, but I like that she's like dressed up like a septa. I mean, that's a little bit better than Tyrion just being a drunken dwarf, and that's like his shtick, and that's how he gets into King's Landing. But
I
I don't
just
know.
don't like
I
how
want to take.
easily that was
I want
done.
to watch it again.
Um, yeah, I watched it 2 times already. I've rewatched it, and I gotta say that I liked it more after rewatching it. But I feel like this last scene just drags the whole thing down. And I really loved the episode. I think this would have been the best episode of House of the Dragon if not for that whole scene at the end. And um, Allison was about to spill war plans there, and it cuts off, when she was talking about Cole
I
and
feel like
Aemon and what they're
I
doing.
feel like she did.
Yeah, so
I
that,
feel like she did.
uh,
I mean, more than like she doesn't say something specifically, but she said more than she should have.
yeah,
And I don't know. Hopefully, this meeting has significant consequence.
it
That's where I
does. I'm
try to
sure
have
it
like
does.
reservations.
I'm sure it does. I feel like this season will end with Alicent trying to go for peace and Rhaenyra refusing her, and the relationship ultimately breaking for good, ending for good. But I just don't need 2 seasons of that. This could have been this could have been the end now. People dying, relatives dying. Um, that could have, you know, cut the ties. And it's dramatic because these people love each other, obviously. They have a loving relationship, and I don't know. But let's get back to the chat for a
I
minute.
mean, children died. I mean, I don't know. Like it's over.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the,
That's
the
my
the point of no return has been passed. So I don't know. When I watched it, and I think it's also the way that scene is scored. I really like a lot.
yeah, well
Um,
acted too.
well, it's great, and it's like, well, but then when you think about what's happening, this is kind of nonsensical.
Yeah, that's a great way to
But
put it. Like I couldn't believe that this was
I mean,
happening. It just felt so out of
well,
place.
I just watched it. I just watched it.
Mm.
Fresh, and I in the moment, like I was texting one of my friends, and I was even saying like I I, I don't like how we got here, but I think it's a good scene. And then now as I'm thinking about like the practicality of this conversation, and then trying to end it with uh the Song of Ice and Fire. Like I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, like, well, just tell him about the dagger then. You obviously don't. Rhaenyra obviously doesn't have the dagger. She knows. Like that's not something to be passive about. That's not something to like. Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
Your father said Aegon,
yeah,
right? Allison's confused. Now it sounds like she gets it. It's a misunderstanding. Okay, bring up the dagger. Tell her to hold the dagger up to a flame. Big like it's not, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get there or not. I don't know. That's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting that to happen, but then it just feels like, well, it's a TV show, and it'd be more dramatic to not have that conversation right now, or to not point out that dagger.
yeah. That's true.
Well, uh,
Let's get back at
I guess that's it.
the
I guess that's the
chat.
problem. I became very aware I was watching a TV show.
Matthew asks, Rhaenyra feels naive at this point. I guess that's the intent of the showrunners. It definitely is. It definitely is. She's not. Both characters, Alicent and Rhaenyra, are not as ruthless as they are presented in the source material. But I'm fine with that in general. I just think that this scene was very much unnecessary. Um, Josh Adams asks, didn't they up the security and close the city after Rook's Rest? They did, but yeah, because they were expecting an an attack. But Rook's Rest is in the next episode. Anyone else think that Cole was gonna throw Gwaine to the dragon? Definitely feel that they'll change his fate in the show. Yeah, yeah.
What's
It
going to
was it was very interesting.
When I was watching that scene, I was like, yeah, this is what's going to happen.
Hmm.
And now Allison's going to have this guilt about insisting that her brother goes off and follows Criston Cole, and then he gets killed. I thought for sure that was happening.
Great actor, by the way. Great dynamic between Cole and Gwen Hightower.
I am interested to see where that goes. I'm finding myself endeared to a lot of these characters. Yeah, I know people hate Criston Cole, but I can't take my eyes off of the screen. Well, obviously, but I have got to watch Criston Cole. I don't. I feel like he's can't miss. He's odd. He's so odd, and everybody hates him. And I can't imagine this show going all the way throughout his entire journey, him just being hated by the audience the entire time. Like, just there's no thing that people like about him. Like, there's only two characters that were like that. With Ramsay and Joffrey in A Song of Ice and Fire, or Game of Thrones.
Mm.
I don't know if they do that with Criston Cole. Can they just make him be hated the entire time? I'm wondering if we're going to get any type of redeeming qualities or moments for his character that
It seems to
collectively the
get
audience says,
worse and worse. That's true. And I don't know what will or what could redeem him really, because after this it's just it gets worse. So yeah, but let's talk about some of
changes,
the other things. We
changes
talked
to
about
the
the
source
good.
material.
Yeah, we talked about the good,
And
which
that's not going to
obviously
make people
was
happy.
Harrenhal. We talked a little bit about the bad, but we didn't talk about all of it. Let me look at my notes. Well, obviously, Daemon is haunted by the past, which I think is
The
great.
Haunting of Hill House is what I was talking about. That
Mm,
if you're familiar with that book at all,
mm,
um, they've made like a million like adaptations of it one way or another. Like Netflix had a really good series on it too. But that's the impression it gave me was the
mm.
Haunting of Hill House. Like Damon felt like a character in that story for a moment, at least. Especially with that like banging on the door, and then there's nobody there, and then he realizes, that he's like hallucinating. It's creepy, it's eerie, and I like that we're getting time alone with Damon, with nobody else that we're really attached to.
Yeah, and it's
Because the closest that we got to that was what's her name, Rhea Royce
yeah,
in the first season.
and that was very
So getting
brief.
him alone with characters that were not super, yeah, 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 it was non-existent in a way. Like there's no establishment of what this
Mm.
character is, but having Damon like by himself, and if he's going to have that moment, where we start to really sympathize for him, we're the writers,
Mm.
for House of the Dragon, right? If Sarah Hess can find a way to romanticize his character a little bit, and then maybe the audience will get on board with this or get away from this idea that the showrunners have a conspiracy against Damon. I don't think that's
I,
so. I
I
think they're trying to
like
establish something.
I like that they are actively working on Damon's inner struggle, because that is something that I think is very much needed for his character development going forward, making him more likable. Adding more good to him. Making it gray, balancing it out, and it being the result of all his wrongdoings from the past is just a great way of doing it. I think Millie Alcock, obviously, big reveal. Millie Alcock is back. Um, Rhaenyra being there, and with Jaehaerys, that is something that obviously didn't get to see, but he was dreaming about it. So he sees the result of his cruel act, and I think that will going forward that will really um, challenge his beliefs and how he his recklessness a bit. And yeah, Alice Rivers also is also finally here. I really enjoyed her as well. I think great casting. Gail Rankin is a fantastic actress, which obviously I've seen episode 4, so I'm not basing that off of just this little scene, this you're going to die here moment. So yeah, people will definitely love Alice Rivers as
Her
well.
appearing, I don't know if I liked her saying that specifically that,
Hmm.
but no, it's like my own like headcanon thing that like she just kind of ruined in one line. But we all have our stupid theory, like fan theories, and I've got my own. But I feel like that one line like ruined it.
Hmm.
But I don't want to spoil anything if anybody is in here that hasn't like read the book or
Hmm.
anything. So, but
Josh,
yeah,
Josh
she was
says,
haunting. I liked her.
Ricky, I'm gonna be honest, my guy. You should have warned me about the Aemond full frontal. I'm sorry, I was not allowed to talk about it. People were
Yeah,
messaging me
but
quite a
thanks
lot
for
about
saying
that.
that. Who said that?
Josh, my co-host from the podcast. Well, I was not allowed to talk about it, and
Okay.
people were messaging me a lot about the brothel scene, which is another thing that we can get to. Um, Aegon mocking Aemond and taking his This seemed to be Aemond's last sacred place there, which is a very weird and freaky dynamic because he was obviously, I take that as abuse. You know, what happened to him when he was younger, being dragged there. And that was the one, that was this one person in the world where he could just be insecure and talk about his feelings. And that was taken away from him. He tells, what did he tell Aegon? That she's just another woman or something. So he's like, he lost that in that moment. That was very sacred to him, and Aegon took it away. And I think, you know, I think it was in the second episode where she was
And
saying,
also for Aemon too, like losing his connection with. I mean, this is the commoner. This is a common born, person that he's attached to. If he loses that, I mean, you know, where the story is going.
yeah,
There's events that are ahead of us, and it's like, I mean, does he just completely lose all empathy after that moment? Because I feel like there's
I
more
think
that
so.
happens there than what we all saw. Like,
I think so.
there's a reason why I don't like that stuff. I don't like gratuitous nudity if it's not carrying the story forward
Hmm.
because it's distracting. Like I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's whatever, it's fine if
Hmm.
it's got a narrative purpose. But it's distracting. And I feel like we missed out on a big moment there for Aemond. I
Hmm.
think most audiences watched that scene and didn't think what you just said,
Hmm.
and therefore I think the full frontal nudity or making it like an emphasis kind of undercuts like that moment.
Yeah, there was a very weird focus there. Like I didn't need to to see all of that, you know. But I'm okay, you know. Other people, I imagine, will be quite happy about that, but it definitely took away from something. Yeah, that could be, you know, the point could have been made stronger, I think. But this was definitely ongoing. This was the place where Aemond.
Talking about that,
This was the place where Aemond went to whenever he just wanted to talk about things, I think. And that was taken away from him by Aegon. And that is something that will just play into his recklessness, his ruthlessness, you know, his anger, I feel. I feel like, and going forward, this will take a huge toll on his character, the good side of him. Josh
I
Adams
don't know. We'll see
says,
what happens.
hopefully, Rhaenyra's character can now start behaving like her book counterpart. No chance of reconciliation. Time to fight this war with dragons. Um, yeah, as I said, I think we will leave this season with Alicent and Rhaenyra being separated for good. I just think that, you know, it's time. It would have been time to do it now, or go into season two with that already being established. But I assume they just, also, you just gotta think about it from a show perspective. They wanted these two amazing actors together in a scene, and yeah, I think that was the main motivation behind that. Jesus V asks, how do you think they are setting up Daron since he was mentioned again in tonight's episode? I think it's better than not mentioning him. It's great that we got confirmation that he is coming in season three, I think. And for me, the best way to introduce him would be to show him claiming Tessarion in episode one of season three, because they crammed 30 years of history into 20 years of history, so he didn't claim Tessarion yet. So actually getting to see that thing, I think, would be a nice contrast to the obvious Dragon Seeds plot that we're getting in this season. So I think that would be interesting. Matthew Stewart asks, are we still of the mind that Rhaena will fill the Nettles role, even with her going to the Vale? Yeah. The leak that's not coming from me. That's not something that I've seen. This is something that obviously was a viral leak. So just putting that out there. The leak says that she's claiming sheep stealer in the Vale. So yeah, that is probably gonna be what's going to happen.
What? Look at those. You saw those eggs, right?
Oh yeah, another
Are you
change. I think another
of the
change.
mind? Yeah, but those eggs. Are you of the mind, or am I? Maybe I'm misremembering uh, the story.
Hmm.
There's four of them, but there
Hmm.
was a green one, there was a gold one, and then there was like that smoke gray
Yeah.
black one. So, and then there's a red one. So forget the red one. Like, maybe something happens to that. You think that is Drogon,
Rhaegal.
Rhaegal, and Sarian.
It could
What'd I say?
be
Rhaegon? Rhaegal.
Rhaegon.
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I think there was that
God.
interview they've done, one of those promo things, and they talked
Hmm.
about Cyrex's eggs being the ones who eventually hatch Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion. But I'm not sure if that is
Yeah.
canon. I'm not sure if that is something that they even know, because they you know they fucked up a bit a bit of lore during that same interview. So I'm not sure if that's canon. It could be the free eggs of Danny, but does it really matter? Does it really matter at all?
I don't think it does. I just thought it was like an interesting thing. I know
Mm.
a lot of people like Easter eggs, right? So literally having an egg be an
Yeah,
Easter egg is
that
kind of
is, yeah.
interesting. If that is the situation. But then I'm wondering, like, well, there's that fourth one, the red one. So,
And also,
you
why
know,
make Dreamfire look
I don't know.
exactly like Drogon? And why, or even, before that, Alyssa Farr, uh, I don't know. It could have been so many things. Um, but yeah. What did you think? Because we didn't talk about that yet. What did you think about the Baela chase scene? The moon dancer, I think, looked really fantastic.
So again, I thought uh, I thought Gwen Hightower was going to die.
Hmm.
Am I getting his name right? Gwen.
Yeah, Gwen.
Yeah, yeah. I thought he was going to die. For whatever reason, I like that. That was just the vibe. Like, and I'm also of like the mindset, like, if you guys change anything, as long as like you're not getting away like thematically from where this is going, okay. Um, there's certain things that like I don't want changed at all,
Hmm.
but most of it I'm happy with you like expanding on. So, but killing Gawain Hightower there, I think would have been kind of interesting, but that's what I thought was going to happen, and it didn't happen. But I still felt great about the scene. But then it goes back to Rhaenyra being so reluctant to actually like lean into war. But if Baela could get to them, would she have? So I kind of like seeing that,
Hmm.
because if you read in the in Fire and Blood, like they speak about Baela as kind of this person who's very similar to Daemon in a way, like kind of rowdy and you know uh, very rambunctious. You
Hmm.
know, so to see her go after them, even though she's been instructed not to, kind of showing part of her like Daemon side a little bit.
Hmm.
I like that, and it was intense. I thought like I enjoyed that scene. It looked good, and I want to see more of Baela and Rhaena. I think that's something that I want to see that develop, just because I want certain characters to matter if this show goes into the Hour of the Wolf, which
Hmm.
I'm I'm hoping for that. So I want to see who these characters are, what they go through. I really want to live with that a little bit,
Hmm.
so that when we get to these moments, not only do I understand where they're coming from or how they're feeling or how they're reacting to things. But then not, I agree with it too. Kind of the
Yeah,
reason why I would like to see more
I like
Riggin
that
Stark
they're
next season.
I like that they're expanding on Baela and Rhaenyra a bit from what we got in season one, which was very little. So I'm always fine with adding stuff if adding stuff makes sense. So I'm not opposed to changes from Fire and Blood. I encourage them because I don't think Fire and Blood is that good. Um, Another thing which was quite a change is that
Like
Aegon.
most people voted 4 or 5 out of 5. I thought that
Hmm,
was a little insane.
hmm. Uh, Another change
But
was
you know,
Aegon actually wearing the Conqueror's armor. He has Valyrian steel armor, which I think.
yeah, fascinatingly enough, it fit him perfectly considering he's like 5'6". But
I think the fact that it doesn't fit him perfectly is a great attention to detail. And I mean, it
mhm.
adds to him. Spoiler alert: surviving Dragonfire because it's Valyrian steel. So I think that was a nice touch. And I like the armor. It's old. It should look a bit old, even though it's Valyrian steel. I
'Cause
imagine
it
that
doesn't
him.
it doesn't Matt like him. Like there's a real contrast in between the version of Aegon that we see there when
Mm,
when we first see that, and then Laris comes and speaks to him, and then when he goes to the brothel,
mm,
and then then we get off the white, which I thought I like his portrayal. I know he like kind of jumped in there just briefly in
mm,
episode 2, I think, but maybe expanding on that a little bit more. Like it keeps teasing these characters to an audience that's unfamiliar with them,
mm,
and they're not beating us over the head with it, and they're not forcing them into any main like yeah, they're not being forced into any main plots just yet, but they're getting us familiar with them, and they're not letting us linger too long with them alone. So when they introduced Adam, we he was introduced with Corley standing next to him, like as credibility, some
mm,
social credibility with the audience. And then when we meet, not Adam, Alan, I'm sorry.
mm,
So then when they introduce Adam with Alan, we're like, okay, well he's cool with Corlys, and then his brother, right? Okay, so we're cool with him. These are good guys. We like these guys.
mm.
At least we think we're supposed to. But with Ulf, like that didn't happen. So he's only there briefly, and then here comes Aegon's party to basically, you know, change the atmosphere entirely. But that was directly after the scene with him donning that armor, deciding not to fly out that day. I thought we were going to get to see Sunfire. Didn't. So
Yeah, yeah. I still have to wait for that.
um,
I mean, Rook's Rest coming, so that we are gonna see him. But yeah, I
did you feel
think
like
there
this
will.
episode had too much exposition at times, especially with the Green Council at first? Like I get they wanted to show that it's kind of clunky there without Otto being present, which I think they communicated that well.
Mm,
Like, hey, this is kind of a clown show here
mm.
without Grandpa here to
Yeah,
like kind of keep
actual guidance,
everybody in check.
actual wisdom.
Yeah, I have felt like things were said almost too directly. Like there was no reading between the lines with some of these moments. Maybe I'm alone with that, but this writer, I'm not sure what else he had written. David Hancock. I'm not familiar with the other episodes he's maybe contributed to
I'm
in
not
the first
sure.
season.
I'm not sure either. I read that name and I wasn't familiar with it. But yeah, Cheetah V
I don't believe he is a
Patel
part of that
is the director, and she
first
did a
one.
phenomenal job. I think this is very well directed. Um,
Yeah, it was. I mean, there are those extended scenes that I don't care how it's written. Like you decided what like is on camera,
mm,
and that's just a I don't know. That's the one area visually like what we're looking at. Like if I said this just a second ago, so it doesn't need to be repeated, but I don't like the audience being distracted from the story just to
Hmm.
show something appalling. And I feel like that was, I don't know, whatever. Some people aren't going to feel that way, I'm sure, but I really actually hate that. I
Hmm.
hated that moment. Other than that, visually, like I'm happy with what we actually saw on screen.
Hmm. Well, what else do we have? Let me check my notes. Well, we talked about and I think they are setting those characters up for the big food riots that will happen this season. I think those characters, the small folk, will be our POV, or Ulf and Hugh will be our POV characters for that. So I think that is
Mhm.
something that we can look forward to. Um, but yeah, let's look back at
I,
the chats. Josh says, jokes aside, I think the scene was pretty well done. He's talking about the brothel scene. The way you see the boy inside Fade and Aemond's facade take over, I think him being shameless over his manhood is a defiance against insecurity. Yeah, I think his insecurity, or his, this was a very, it was very dear to him, and that part died, and that is a very dangerous thing, because the woman, I'm not sure what her name is, um, the prostitute, she was talking about the small folk and how dangerous it is when princes lose their temper. So there's no one that will remind him of that, I think, and that's going to be interesting to see play out.
yeah, I like that comment though too. I mean, it challenges my uh, criticism of the scene, in a reasonable way. I just uh, I just hope people see that scene for what it means for
Hmm.
Aemond, but we'll see what happens. Um, I did have I have some silly notes here, I suppose. I did like hearing Helena speaking very directly. This isn't one of the silly notes, but that direct scene with Helena and Alicent. I like hearing Helena talk like a person.
Hmm.
Um, I like all the stuff that's kind of cryptic, or we're unsure. It's mysterious. We're not certain what she's aware of, what she's unaware of. Is it just a feeling? Is it just a sensation? I enjoyed that we got to see her and Allison have like a real interaction, and we got to see Helena be kind of humanized, uh, where we maybe haven't so far, because she is so out there in a way that's almost unrelatable. But I like her character, so I was happy to see that. I don't know how you felt about that scene. I like that
Definitely.
she said, telling Allison, "I forgive you," and it doesn't need to be said what she's forgiven her for. We all know what she's saying. I forgive you for.
It's a trap that you can
So
easily
I
fall
thought that was
into,
a
when
quality.
you have a character that is there for dragon dreams and, prophecy, to only use that character for that aspect. And they didn't here, and I really like that because it expands her, she is obviously having emotions like a normal person would have, and I like the dynamic that Helena and Allison have in general on the show. And yeah, people were complaining about blood and cheese, obviously, but I think Rhaenyra sewing, you know, I don't know, it was very, that was almost too gory for me. Not gory, but too. Uh, I didn't. That is exactly why I didn't want blood and cheese to be brutal. Was seeing sewing the hat back on. That was just, I was like, that's a bit too much for me. So it's a weird dynamic there, going from blood and cheese, going from not showing anything at all to using it in Damon's vision. What did you think about that?
I don't know. I feel like I'll end up going on to a tangent here with people I was upset with after episode one, but
Hmm.
or frustrated with the part of the fan base. I I've like loosened up on that because I kind of understand where they're coming. I do understand where like half the book fans are coming from. Some of them are kind of impractical, but I know that like a lot of people thought that they didn't show it just because it was going to be too graphic. Where it being too graphic in the first episode, it serving a narrative purpose by showing how graphic it is when we can hear it, right? So we can't hear it. It is a very disturbing thing, especially if you go into this episode or this story blind. You don't know anything. The legend of Blood and Cheese is not something that you're familiar with. So how graphic or how horrific that is, as we imagine it, reading the source material, we see it one way. But people walking into it blind, I think we're upset by it. And that's the
Definitely,
desired result. To be
definitely.
like not upset like, "Oh, I wish you would have done it differently." Upset by what they experienced. And you gotta think we don't have a lot of time with it. We don't have really any time with Jaehaera or Jaehaerys. So to get any type of emotion there, we're more relating to the fact that it's an innocent child. Now, when we go to Daemon experiencing that, it's important for Daemon to witness the brutality of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Narratively, because
Yeah.
we're trying to put it wasn't important for the audience to experience that in episode 1. It is important for us to for Daemon to experience it. We need to see what he's seen. So I don't think it's I think it's gonna I think people might look at that and say, "Well, if you could show it here, why all the excuses for episode 1?"
Hmm.
I think it's more narrative driven than anything for
That's a
why they
good
show
point.
it here in episode
That's a good
3.
point.
I don't
Damon
think there's a
directly
story
seeing.
purpose for it in episode 1.
That's a good point. It's Damon seeing his the consequences of his actions. Um, about Blood and Cheese, my problem wasn't.
He's not really confronted with it.
Hmm. With Blood and Cheese,
But
my problem was not that we didn't get to see it. Also, not the Sophie's Choice angle. My problem was that Allison wasn't there because we could have. My problem was, we didn't get this huge emotional reaction, which we obviously couldn't get from Helaena because that character was never portrayed to be like that. Um, she still could have been emotional, I think, but it's good. It's fine with me. I just wanted to have Allison there so we can get the reaction out of her because I feel like that would have, enhanced the scene a lot more. Um, but yeah, Matthew said the same thing here. No, he Matthew says, I never wanted to see Jaehaerys getting murdered. My issue is they took away the Sophie's Choice angle of it. That's another aspect. We didn't get Maelor, and I don't think we are going to get Maelor, by the way. It's a bit too late for that now. Um, I'm fine with
I
them
mean,
not having Maelor there.
well, there's no source material for him anymore, so that's going to like line up. So it would have to be a completely original idea, because the idea is that that's what Allison is doing. In my mind, that's what Allison is doing for a good portion of this war until I don't know. I don't know if your audience has read the book or not, but
Hmm.
Allison doesn't have a whole lot to do. So Maelor being present is really about it. That and the like kind of maybe be a voice of commentary from inside the Red Keep about what some of the thinking is there
Hmm.
politically. But I didn't see her having a huge role. So getting rid of that and replacing it with this Allison and Criston Cole relationship, I don't think a lot of people like that at all. But I'm trying to be patient with it because I do like that they're marrying those two people conflicted. They both feel guilty. You know, I like that they kind of are experiencing this together in a way. But I feel like we're supposed to be actually looking at Alicent and comparing her to Rhaenyra. You know what I mean? Because that's the way you started this. It was the princess and the queen. So how are they both handling it? Even though up until this point in the story, neither one of them really have a whole lot to do.
Hmm.
Like they don't get their hands dirty quite yet. So I guess I'm really confused about what they're wanting to do. I don't know where the Alicent Criston Cole thing is going.
I don't
I
think
do
it
have a
goes
note
anywhere
here.
because we know
Well,
where Kroll is going, so I don't think it goes anywhere.
well, unless they, that's what I was thinking too. Like, is that their last interaction?
I think
And if
so.
it is, that kind of fucking sucks. Like, other than so it'll make me look back at Blood and Cheese a lot differently if like this this thing this thing that's burdened Kristen Cole, clearly he has no way of telling women no if they want him.
Hmm.
So we're just going to send him, knowing where this is going for his character. Well, how do you tie that back to Allison? You can't. That
I
can't be
think
it.
I think it's more about Alicent than it is about Cole. Alicent is purposely, uh, that was done on purpose. Her not making any sense right now is done on purpose. She's out of character, and I think now obviously with her realizing that she misinterpreted the prophecy, that will do even more for her. And I think it's about Alicent wanting peace and Rhaenyra um, becoming ruthless. That is where those characters are headed. And yeah.
I I, I hope that the insistence on taking their time
Mm.
with Rhaenyra getting her hands dirty. I hope we are going to get to a tipping point eventually. And I'm really excited to see how they handle that because there's no way
Yeah.
you can keep this up with one character this long. Like like people can say the fathering children out of wedlock or whatever, fathering bastards with Harlan Strong. Okay, I guess. I mean, it depends on how virtuous you are, I suppose. But
Mm.
I don't hold that against her as like, oh, this evil person. This is a person that's trying to cause harm.
No, no. I
Eventually,
mean,
she will. Eventually, she'll care less about the harm that she causes.
which is the whole point,
Where right
right?
now that
We just have to arrive at a point where these
I think so.
people are doing horrible things because war changes people and war is horrible. That is the point of the story, in my interpretation. I think all of these people deserve what happened to them. Not the children, but the big players, and the small folk. What happened to the small folk because of this stupid conflict? I think, and that's why I'm not taking any sides. I think they all deserve to die. They all deserved what happened to them. Rhaenyra, Aegon, all of them. And I think that is the point. The destruction that these actions caused and what the small folk had to go through, and the entire continent almost. It's just so, I don't know. I hope that is becoming the main focus, and I like that. There's more small folk. There's more of the small folk aspect that's implemented on in Hugh Hammer's character. I really like that that's implemented there, and I hope that really goes somewhere. Matthew had a very
I I
interesting
think it will.
question.
Yeah.
Matthew had a very interesting question. He asks, "Do you all think the Butcher's Ball happens at the end of this season or the beginning of season 3? I think that happens in season 4. I can't see that happening anywhere anytime soon. I think this season will end. Um, we know a bit about the final episodes due to leaks, and I think that this season will end with the Lannisters, you know, at Lion's Tooth. I think because it was already talked about in this episode too. Jason Lannister is marching. I think the Lannisters losing is the final thing that we will, the final battle that we will see, and the Winter Wolves come into the play. So you have the Lannisters and the Starks in there, which obviously is huge for people. I think the Gullet opens up season 3. Um, we might get the fall in this season. I hope not. I hope that's still a season 3 thing. And I think Battle of the Honey Wine is a big battle for season 3. And I will be shocked if we get more than that because the Battle of the Gullet will be very expensive. Biggest sea battle that we've ever seen. Um, so yeah, the fish feet. Sorry, I was I was looking at the I was looking for the name. Yeah, the fish feet. I think that might be changed, uh, earlier than when we got in the source material. And yes, I am pro Shepherd. Not him killing or the small folk killing the dragons, although I think that was something that um wasn't done out of nowhere.
They're complaining about some of these smaller characters like getting any screen time, but they're not getting much. I mean, like you have to. You can't just start having these people show up with absolutely no background. And it's
Hmm.
better to do it now than to wait until later, because then it'll feel too abrupt. I don't care if we're only getting little small pieces. I think it's important. We don't. We're not going to enjoy it if they just show up. We're not going to feel connected to them at all. You know, I, like it depends on where the show ends. Are we going? Are we getting to the hour of the wolf? Like I really hope so.
I think so
Maybe
because
I'm
I've
a
seen a
bit more
storyboard.
emotionally connected to that.
I've seen a storyboard of the final episode of this season, and Cregan Stark arrives at the twins supposedly. So why use him instead of Roddy the Ruin if you're not showing the Hour of the Wolf? That is pure setup. That is a huge change that I would be fine with because I really like the Starks being involved, and I think that makes sense for the character too. And why do that if you don't go for the Hour of the Wolf? I don't think it's gonna be a big part. I think 2 episodes max, but I think that will end the show pretty much.
I just I'm hoping, like, you know I don't know how you felt when you, especially Cregan Stark, like, that's kind of on a power trip, right? I mean, kind of like, you know holier than thou, that kind of thing. Like I like the idea of like this audience in particular being shown a Stark character that they're like, hold on, I don't know, this guy kind of rubs me the wrong way. He's just in here like bossing everybody. What is going on? Like nobody seems to like really like this guy, but they all respect him. He's honorable, but it's almost I don't know. I think it might change people's opinions on how they view Stark characters. Maybe.
I hope so.
Or sort of like the history of House Stark. But I think everybody views House Stark as like, well, this is the Jedi. Like they can't do any
Hmm.
wrong. And that's just not really the case.
Yeah.
I I feel like I've seen maybe too many of those videos where it's like the Empire was right.
Yeah.
So maybe that affects my opinion on like houses like the Starks, but
But yeah, all in all, do you have any closing thoughts before we end the stream? I'll let you go
yeah,
first about the
yeah,
episodes.
yeah.
About the
I'm gonna
episode.
ask one. I want to ask. I want to ask one question here.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I wanted to ask this because we brought it up earlier because we don't know where Allison's going. We don't know where Criston Cole's going. Like I got a better idea of where Allison's going. I feel like maybe are they just doing all this stuff with Criston Cole making us hate him just so we feel happy if he dies? I don't know. But is Allison pregnant?
No, no, that's just a. I've seen that because the description or the big moments of those episodes that were leaked on Reddit and stuff, and people obviously messaged me a lot because I've seen the first 4 episodes, and no, that's just that's just her not wanting to become
I don't
pregnant.
think that I don't think I don't think that would be revealed right now. I don't think it'd be revealed this season. But I think she might be pregnant. Like not because of leaks or anything like that I've heard. Just
Hmm.
like something I saw, like where she's standing there, like before Kristen Cole leaves, like she's standing there like what, like resting her hand. Like Olivia Cook's not like overweight or anything. She's not the type of person that rests her hands on her gut. Maybe it's just like her being
Worrying about it.
proper or whatever.
I think it's her worrying about becoming
Huh?
pregnant.
maybe.
Hmm.
I
So
don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I
It's like
didn't
one of these.
interpret it like that. I think she's just, being cautious and um, taking Westerosi birth control. That's all I got out of it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I do like that. I like her being shown as just a total hypocrite. As far
Yeah.
as and I think that matches her up with Criston Cole really well. So I don't know. I would really like to see that go somewhere. I don't think it is, but I'd like it to go somewhere more specifically for Cole because I can see where they're going to take Allison. There's various options for her, but then I don't want it to be all for nothing for Cole. I feel like there's something redeeming there, but he
Hmm.
gets punished anyway. Would be like my ideal, payoff for that character because everybody hates him. It's too much.
And overall about the episode, what did you think about it? Do you have a rating in
It's my
mind?
least favorite of the three.
Hmm.
I don't know if I have a rating, but it's my least favorite of the three that I've seen. We'll see at the end of the season, but it's definitely my least favorite. But I'm not as harsh on Blood and Cheese as maybe a lot of people are.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we'll see. We'll see how I feel about that. What they do with Alicent instead. I'm with you. I like that. I wanted that scream in episode 1, and then I dialed back on that where it didn't bother me as
Hmm.
much. But where I want Allison to be traumatized and also have to be a caretaker for Maelor, and Helaena goes in a different direction. These characters don't take a better path, then I don't know. I might revisit it. But as of today, episode 3 is my least favorite. I don't know, 6.8 out of 10.
Oh wow. Huh.
Just some obscure just some obscure
Yeah.
number. There's a couple things there that bother me a lot.
Hmm.
But like I was saying about the Aemon scene, like I don't. There's something going on. There's something to be communicated, and I just hope like the guy in the chat said, and I hope people see it that way,
Hmm.
where it shows uh, I don't know. I'm getting tired. I don't know. I'm not making sense here with my thoughts. I'll write it down. I'll watch it a few more times. We'll see what I really think. 6.8 today. It might be 10 out of 10 on Wednesday. I'm not sure.
To me, all in all, I really like the Harrenhal stuff. I think that was, ripped straight out of how I imagined it to be. Very much haunted. The ghost of Harrenhal is a theme that's felt all throughout this thing. I like what they're doing with Daemon, which was a huge chunk of this episode. I didn't talk about it yet, but I really liked Simon Strong, Simon Russell Beale, fantastic actor. I didn't like the Scepter Rhaenyra thing, and I'll get to that in my review as well. Um, so yeah, thank you guys so much for hopping on the stream. Thank you, D Charles, for coming on for saving the stream by being here. Always glad to have you. Definitely subscribe to him, watch his videos, and I'm looking forward to that video.
Have me on.
Bye, guys. See you soon.